when celebrity vulnerability becomes entertainment. One of the most interesting threads running through this chaotic TMZ transcription isn't any single celebrity scandal or outrageous comment. It's how celebrity culture turns private vulnerability into public entertainment, and how quickly audiences are asked to judge, laugh, or move on. The clearest example of this is the recurring discussion around Bethenny Frankel's bacterial infection, and how it's treated less as a health issue and more as a punchline, a social puzzle, and a piece of gossip theater. At face value, no pun intended, Bethenny Frankel coming home from St. Bart's with a bacterial infection is not particularly shocking. People get sick on vacation all the time. But the way it's framed here is revealing. The infection isn't discussed with concern so much as fascination and humor. I'm allergic to St. Bart's, super spreader yachts, and jokes about just covering it with a straw bag. Her body becomes a spectacle, something to be evaluated for attractiveness, desirability, and inconvenience rather than well-being. What makes this compelling is how quickly the conversation pivots from health to hotness. One of the hosts repeatedly poses a hypothetical. If the hottest person you can imagine wanted to hook up with you, but you knew they had this infection, would you do it? This question says more about celebrity culture than about Bethenny herself. The infection isn't treated as something serious or uncomfortable. It's treated as a variable in a sexual cost-benefit analysis. Even the distinction between face versus privates becomes a comedic debate, as if illness only matters insofar as it interferes with desire. This reflects a broader pattern in pop culture. Celebrities are allowed to be human only if their humanity is entertaining. Pain, illness, postpartum bodies, mental health, or fear, all of these are acceptable topics as long as they can be framed as content. Bethenny's infection becomes less about what happened to her and more about where it happened. St. Bart's, who she was with Alex Earle, Glenn Powell, Lauren Sanchez, and whether it could be traced like a gossip epidemiology map. The hosts jokingly talk about patient zero and super spreader yachts, which mirrors how real public health language gets diluted into humor when applied to rich, famous people. What's especially interesting is the contradiction at the heart of this coverage. On one hand, there's mockery of wealth and privilege. Sun and caviar for extended periods of time can cause luxury fatigue. On the other hand, there's deep fascination with that same wealth. The yachts, the celebrity guest lists, the idea that boats compete for the most famous people on board, all of it reinforces the exclusivity even while pretending to ridicule it. Bethenny's infection almost becomes proof of authenticity. Even the ultra-rich can't escape consequences. This dynamic also connects to how the show treats other women in the transcript. Sydney Sweeney's ghost stories are tolerated primarily because she's that hot. Rihanna's postpartum body is praised, but also scrutinized. Her stomach hidden, her butt celebrated. Brittany Furlan's catfishing ordeal is framed as embarrassing pride rather than emotional distress. Across the board, women's experiences are filtered through a lens of attractiveness, entertainment value, and audience patience. Bethenny's situation stands out because it strips away glamour in a visible way. A bacterial infection on the face disrupts the carefully curated image celebrity culture relies on. That disruption is uncomfortable, so it gets neutralized with jokes. Humor becomes a defense mechanism, not just for the hosts, but for the audience. Laughing at it keeps the illusion intact. Celebrities can suffer, but only briefly, and preferably in a way that doesn't force real empathy. Ultimately, the Bethenny Frankel segment isn't really about her at all. It's about how modern celebrity coverage functions. Illness becomes gossip. Vulnerability becomes content. Health becomes a thought experiment about sexual desirability. And concern is always secondary to whether the story is funny, clickable, or outrageous enough to hold attention for another segment. If this breakdown made you think differently about celebrity media, hit like, subscribe for more deep dives, and drop a comment below. Do you think pop culture has gone too far? Or is this just the cost of fame?